we have got a fantastic group of people to share their insights, their experience, their real navigation of the business world for animation. Just about 3 weeks ago or so, the BFI released the long-awaited value of the screen sectors report, in that they include animation as well as high-end TV and film and games. And basically, it's really good news. In 2015-16, there were £97 million invested in animation production. There's been a 27% growth since the introduction of the tax breaks. There's been 3,000 more jobs created. And, you know, that doesn't even take into account some of the spillovers or the impact of things like merchandising and licensing. It's good news. But what that didn't include was actually some of the things you've been talking about, Olivia, and my panellists have been working on. So it doesn't include wider business deals. It doesn't include animation in games, for example, or VR or AR or MR. It doesn't include that whole spillover effect. Doesn't include exports. So, hey, this is a really good, potentially, in business environment. But why doesn't it feel like that on the ground sometimes? And what could we do more of to make sure that we are creating the future business of animation? These guys can tell us. And they're actually a most fantastic panel because they're so low maintenance. They're going to introduce themselves. They're going to talk about some key emerging themes like commissioning in the UK, what does it look like, where are new sources of investment coming from, but also brand strategy, and how do you develop your own IP in the first place, given the funding mix that many animation companies have to pursue. They're going to look at that whole new emerging impact of tech on production and talk about whether or not there's an impact on quality and the fusion of animation and games. And our new immersive tech. And running through all of that will be the absolute focus that Olivia mentioned on storytelling. Content is king and queen. And whatever the business opportunities and the new future, that's the key. But over to my panel, who will in turn introduce themselves, show some clips, and then we'll kick off with some questions. And I'm going to start with Andy, if you don't mind.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. My name's Andy Wood. I'm president of a local company called Cubic Motion. We've just moved into the top floor of the Bright building, which is over there. Well, at least I think we have. I was in the States last week. I'd seen the premises, and when I was away, they all moved. So I hope after this, they'll actually be where I think they are. We also have another studio in Pinewood. Principally, we're a computer vision company. So computer vision, for those who don't know, teaches computers to see, read, track and record, in our case, complex human expressions. And we then move that or transfer it, in some cases instantly, onto digital humans. So we grew from somebody's lounge. There were 4 people originally. We're now up to 104. We have 21 computer vision scientists, and many, many years ago, we decided to specialize in facial animation, which we can do without markers, and we can do it in real time as well. What we've become very well known for is some of the top video games with companies like Sony. We did the very recent Spider-Man, which I believe is their fastest selling game of all time on PS4. Activision's Call of Duties, we're pretty much involved in those. We work with partners like Epic, who've created the Unreal Engine for when we talk about real time, and they've had this almost windfall project, Fortnite, which is, I think, projecting 2 billion revenue in less than a year. So we're very ingrained in the video games world. We've worked on some films. Our tech was used for a Channel 4 series called Kiss Me First, I think it is. And there's an example in the video we're going to run in a moment of a real-time human that we worked on with Tencent, who I saw that you mentioned, Epic, Threelateral, who are great at creating digital human models, and Vicon, who do body capture. the video's kind of targeted to talk about how we intend to license our technology to third parties, which is some of the big visual effects houses, and so we can package up what we do in many senses offline, so other people can imitate what we do, and that should open up the market to use the tools that we've created. So although it's focused, the video should provide a bit more insight into what we do. And I apologize for shouting on the video. The American producers made me do it at GDC San Francisco. I had to do one last week and I refused to shout. And I also apologize betraying my birthright as a Mancunian and saying computer instead of computer. They made me do it. So if we could run the video.
It was his fault.
Computer vision is to AR and VR what the film camera was to cinema. It's that radical.
At Cubic Motion, we believe we're changing the way people think about facial animation because of the realism that we can create in a live environment, absolutely real time.
Cubic Motion have announced that we're going to license our real-time facial capture to film studios, game makers, VR and AR companies, so everybody can use our tools to make and direct their products in real time.
So if you license technology from Cubic Motion, the benefits are huge increases in efficiency. So you can see from the demonstrations we've done at GDC the output that we create in real time with no human intervention. So you apply that in a pipeline with mass volume of performance capture, and all of a sudden you can build this huge narrative world, save money, time, and just create high quality across large volumes.
For this year, when it comes to digital humans, we felt we could push things even further. So we brought together a group that would aim to take live capture digital humans to the next level. Cubic Motion and 3Lateral made crazy, significant improvements to the live performance capture and facial rigging technology. So please let me introduce you to Siren.
You can use this for digital humans live streamed over the internet. So in the future we'll interact with digital versions at the bank or the post office. We can use this technology to put a face to Alexa or Siri or any type of digital assistant.
What's been brilliant is seeing other people see what we do. We've been doing this for a long time. Some of our PhD technologists have been working on computer vision for 20 years. For the first time, to see how the public respond to what we do is a shot in the arm. It kind of makes all those late nights worthwhile, as we've finally created something for other people to use and enjoy and believe in.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Extremely great to think beyond our animation programming context. So thanks for that, Andy. Benjamin, I think you're going to pick up on some of those thoughts.
Yes, so my name is Benjamin Donoghue. I'm the founder and creative director at Blackstaff Games. We're a small interactive and animation company based in Belfast. Our background was originally in 2D animation, so what we tend to do is create interactive products and look as interactive as a way, as essentially a tool to build narrative and see interactive interactions as something that you can actually teach, and that's something that enhances brands and kind of enhances kind of storytelling as well. So we've got kind of a small clip of a few of our projects as well to kind of show some of that.
Thank you.
This is a city of people living in these wide miles of building. Big, energetic, triumphant. The town growing all the time. People moving in all the time. The big city reaching out. For this city can be what it wishes to be. It can produce whatever it wishes to produce. Riches of any kind. Beauty of any kind.
So yeah, as you can see with those projects, all of them were kind of a broad range of from kind of mobile to iPad to console, but it always starts with kind of character first and trying to use interactive as a way to enhancing those characters.
Thank you, brilliant. And last but not least, because Olivier's obviously had his moment in terms of brand strategy, Jackie.
Hello there, my name is Jackie Edwards and I'm head of BBC Children's Acquisitions and Independent Animation Department over in sunny Salford. Come visit us anytime, door's always open. The Acquisitions and Animation Department is one of the biggest buyers of animation in children's TV in this country, and we buy for children between 0 and 16 years of age, and our buying strategy changes according to which channel, which platform we're buying for. For CBeebies up to 0 to 6, we pre-buy animation, and that's all we do with that pot of money. And for 0 to 16, we've got a bit more of a varied sort of shopping list. We pre-buy animation, things like Dennis and Nasher, Shaun the Sheep, The Deep, Scream Street, and we also buy international live action for the channel, and also latterly for iPlayer. We are public service broadcaster first and foremost, so we, like Olivier, we're trying to put everything everywhere, but at the same time we've got a remit that is slightly different from a commercial entity like E1. We have to do lots of things. We have to have a diverse offer for our audiences, so we look everywhere. We do different things. We do things that other broadcasters wouldn't necessarily do. And we embrace and celebrate diversity in all of its forms. We sit outside, acquisitions and animation, thankfully and mercifully, sits outside of the commissioning process at the BBC. I don't know if you've ever tried to sort of go through that process, but we're approachable and accessible, and if you go to the website bbc.co.uk/commissioning/acquisitions, you can find all about our policy for buying there. And you can see what we're looking for and what we are currently planning for 2021, which is what we're buying for most of the time now. If you go to the commissioning website as well, there are opportunities for animation. We are commissioning more and more short form content, so there are opportunities, and it's not such a new thing for us. We've been buying short form content for quite a while, and we experiment. We use that money to try and grow new brands. So things like Tea and Mo, which is a long form series that we launched on the channel this year, that started life as a game and webisodes, and then we commissioned more and more short form content, and it got such an audience traction. It was sort of proof, if you like, that there was an appetite for this brand, and we commissioned a long form series in the back of it. So we use short form content to experiment, and also brands that can just sort of sit independently as that. And the multi-platform world has been a great opportunity for us to experiment more and more, and we are doing more of that. We've got a current policy of bigger, better, fewer across the piece. So we're looking to grow brands more and more and have a long-term future with them. So like the Peppa Pig model, but a public service broadcast version of it, if you like. We try and put everything everywhere we can, but in a more moderate version, I suppose.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone. Maybe we could just stay with that theme of commissioning, acquisitions, and PSB-ness, and more generally. How do you feel as a panel? And maybe I can start with Jackie, although that's a bit unfair, because you are quite right. The BBC is, the key commissioner and acquirer of animation content in the UK. But what do you feel of the overall temperature and access to investment in the UK at the moment for independent animation? Do you think it's there?
It is, and it's very interesting times, actually. If you look at the past, present, and the future, the one thing that stays consistent is content and the quality of content. It will always be king. Sort of great concepts that are driven by great character and great stories, that will be the thing that will always endure. But when I was a girl and first started in animation, we were painting cells. Technology has changed, and we can produce a 52-part series in the time we used to take to produce a 13-part series sort of 20, 25 years ago. So technology is a great thing. We can produce volume quicker. But, that for a public service broadcast with a limited budget, that can be a blessing and a curse, because everybody comes to us wanting 52 or 104 episodes commissioned, whereas our budget isn't changing. So it's sort of limiting the opportunity, if you like, to producers. And, as I say, we want to be a broad church. But it's really, that's the thing we struggle with on a daily basis, where our balance should be in terms of, yes, bigger, better, fewer, and promoting a few brands that we think can resonate and cut through, but also, giving all of our audience something for them. And sort of that's our struggle. So in that sense, as the BBC, it's quite a difficult balancing act. On the other hand, as producers, you could consider it to be a golden age of possibility, because there are many more platforms. You can go to any of the FANGs, as we like to call them, the Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix and Google. Very many of them have very large purses, and it's a great opportunity if you want to get a show into production quickly. It can be a one-stop shop, and that's great from a producer's point of view. But how that sort of segs into the future has yet to be seen, because will there be more consolidation?
Right.
If you look at Disney and the way that they're sort of focusing down their business into, buying back their brands from Netflix, etc. It's a very interesting time. YouTube presents new opportunities, but also, from my point of view, for a very young audience, sort of slight hesitation, because there is a bit of a safeguarding issue there sometimes when people start playing with brands inappropriately. You don't always want to see you don't want young eyes to see that. So it's a world of opportunity in many regards, and how you make sense of that is going to be the challenge for us and for producers. I think if I'd had 50p for every conversation I'd had about SVOD holdbacks, I'd be sort of on a nice holiday now, because we've all got a partner, and finding the right partnerships is key, I think, to anybody. And so we only put a little bit of money in from BBC, so we've got to find the right partners to kind of make the jigsaw puzzle work for everybody. Production company, the broadcaster, the distributor, and whatever other platforms you're going to go to. So it's a world of opportunity. How it changes in the future is going to be really fascinating, and how we all deal with it is going to be the big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to come in, Olivia?
Right now we need to be super nimble and super flexible to do anything, because getting everyone to partner is very difficult. The linear and the non-linear platforms, it's really challenging. It used to, for a little while it was an amazing, there was amazing opportunities, and it feels like everyone now is sort of closing back down again a little bit in terms of exclusivity. So that's definitely a challenge. I think an opportunity in the UK is probably the other broadcasters. That's been a big thing for me. Each time I'm given a voice to say that it's not normal for other, sort of terrestrial broadcasters in the UK not to pull in their weight in terms of funding kids programming. It seems like the pendulum might be swinging back a little bit in that direction, which I think is about time, to be honest. And so I think that's an opportunity for the UK. As we all see that sort of ratings are going down, but on a very young audience, there is still a very substantial number of kids, because going back to that question about sort of Facebook, the parents still want to trust linear brands to put their kids in front of them. So so it seems like there is still a nice future for linear television for that younger audience, when it's much more challenging, obviously, for an older audience.
It's very, very true, and sort of CBeebies has retained its audience in a way that other broadcast platforms haven't over the last few years. And we see it as sort of a shop window for our content. iPlayer is increasingly important for us, particularly for the older audience, but for CBeebies as well. But the linear channel is our shop window. It's a beautifully curated, safe garden for children to watch a lot of different content. And, if they want to see more of something, they can go to the iPlayer. But linear, very important for preschool.
And very important to pick up on the point, because you're not the only PSB in town, albeit, obviously, our key public service broadcaster. There are other broadcasters, and Ofcom, this is official, have produced the evidence that there's been a dramatic market failure in terms of the investment in kids' content. That's live action as well as animation, and they've put they haven't introduced targets or quotas, as we all know, but they have asked the broadcasters to come back to them by March of next year, to not the BBC, but ITV 4 and 5, to say what they are going to do to address that market failure and what plans they have in place to put more content budget together. So it certainly is a gap at the moment, and that's not just the industry bodies or the industry itself saying that. It's our regulator saying that. So I think there's a really important moment now over the next 6 months where the broadcasters will need to be really thinking about their response to this issue. But in the meantime, I wanted to pick up on one thing, Olivia, that I mentioned earlier. In the meantime, time and time again, we have that feedback from the independent animation sector that because of the tapestry of funding and the levels of broadcaster investment, less than 25%, etc., that means production companies have to put together a network of funders, sometimes in doing so lose their IP, quite often actually, and therefore all that fantastic work around licensing, merchandising, brand management can be lost. Can you see anything to be optimistic about on that front from your vantage point?
It's tough because obviously, as Jackie was saying, if you're just at heart a content maker, you want your content made, and the temptation might be to go to Amazon, Apple or Netflix to fund the show. The reality is that's probably a dead end when it comes to licensing and merchandising in most territories, to be honest, in the sense that it's very hard for shows to be discovered on these platforms. The amount of support that you'll get there is very, very different than the one that you will get on linear television. So it's right now it's tricky because again, it's amazing as a content maker, one-stop shop, big check to go and make what you do best, which is making content, and that's extremely attractive. But we find that it's not necessarily, if you're looking to build something as big as sort of Peppa Pig or PJ Masks, it's a tricky route. It's a much more uncertain route nowadays, because of reach in certain territories or just the amount of content that these platforms offer their audience, and therefore you get lost in the shuffle. So yeah.
Do you get a sense that that's starting to change though? Because we've been trying to do deals in the past with some of the SVOD platforms, and they are very restrictive on the allowance for, say, catch-up rights, which we can't run with that. But I get a sense that things will be changing.
It might. I mean, for the younger demo in preschool, everything we've done demonstrates that the more the program is exposed on different platforms, the more everyone wins. So it's very noticeable on Peppa, like it's on Channel 5, Nick, YouTube, Amazon, Netflix, Sky. I mean, it's everywhere, and everyone does brilliantly well. Because, at the end of the day, in kids, and that's very different from non-kids. So these platforms gradually, but I think very slowly, are realizing that kids is different than, adult. Yes, of course, House of Cards, once you've seen it once, you're not going to see it again. So, the exclusivity is everything. It's not the case in kids, where kids are, watching and rewatching and rewatching, and particularly in preschool, to make to really establish yourself, you really need to go big, and and so our experience is that those, Netflix realized this, that some their best audiences are on shows which have actually a life elsewhere. It's very hard for them to make a big impact on their own with no one else supporting them, whether it's YouTube or linear broadcasters. So I agree that it is changing. It used to be no, full exclusivity, and I want to. Well, initially it was sharing so that the program could get made. Then there's this tendency now of effort platforms to say, you know what, we're just going to fund it all ourselves and not be bothered with sharing.
Yeah.
And then they realize that it's very hard to market the brand on their own when they're, launching, I don't know, like the pace is incredible, like 6 a month or something, 6 or 7 a month, which is not the case for a linear broadcaster. That sort of spend, launches a lot less shows, has less show on its schedule, and therefore gives them more an opportunity to find their audience. So yeah.
Fantastic. I am coming to you, Andy and Benjamin. I am coming to you for the new business models and coming back, but just on this is it's a kind of interesting time. We're in a good moment. I think the golden age we've been talking about for a number of years might be, we might be in it. And there are some nuggets of good news as well. We have the Young Audiences Content Fund being launched in April. The BFI will be administering a £57 million fund for kids content from right through to 18, including animation, of course, but live action, of course. And that's a real opportunity for the sector. It's PSB content that will be available free to air. It's also going to include some development funding. So this will be an opportunity for some of the indies and individuals to look at development funding, which has been completely missing for lots of people in recent years. And it's going to be based in the north, the Young Audience Content Fund, and the BFI are looking for a new head of that fund as we speak. So check it out, because I hope that's an animation person. Secondly, Helen Brunsden has been doing a lot of consultation over the last few months. I think you'll know this, I hope you know this, on the potential for a new shorts development fund, and I think that would be amazing as well. We must be one of the few countries that don't have that opportunity for people to really develop their creative muscle. But commissioning, as we say, even with our new partners and our new opportunities, is only going to be part of our business navigation, right? I mean, it's not just about getting our heads around developing content and finding partners who can help us make it, distribute it, promote it, and make it and get it out there on the screen. We're also looking at a real golden age in terms of technology. And as usual, when there's that technological moment, people think, oh, it's all going to be about tech and automation and quality is going to go out the window. How would you answer that, Benjamin?
In terms of, I guess, kind of the automation side, at least, like we tend to, it's always really nice having a programmer in-house, because generally if something takes more than a day for more than one person to do, it's easier for them to sit down in the morning, write a little script that automates that job, and then you never have to deal with it again. So it's really nice to be able to kind of get rid of a lot of the busy work. And so especially from a kind of a small company point of view, it means that we can kind of compete on those kind of, I guess, management levels that kind of bigger companies have entire departments, and we can just kind of get a computer somewhere to deal with it for us. So it's been really kind of liberating in that sense, being able to use technology outside of just our creating the kind of games in the first place. So in terms of kind of pipeline.
Yep. And Andy?
I can only really speak from our point of view. The first thing is I totally agree. It's got to start with content and quality, intellectual property, distribution. The pillars are always the same, whatever media you use to consume it or to make it. In our case, I mentioned we're up to 104 people, 20 or so computer vision people making technology, but we have 40 artists who help our clients with compositing and tuning and so on. So the animation part is still strong and growing. And in fact, in terms of the entry-level positions, we're behind in terms of filling the vacancies that we have, so that's burgeoning and positive. I think in terms of consumption, it was really interesting. I love FANGS, by the way, Jackie, and I can remember that great acronym. It was really interesting to me what you said, Oliver, about putting back-to-back content, if it's 5 minutes of Peppa Pig, adding it up to 15, and the popcorn effect. If you look at the States at the moment, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the president of Disney and then one of the founders of DreamWorks, has just raised $1 billion for his new company, which is called, short for Quick Bites, a Quibi, funny name. And their dedication is to make content between 10 and 20 minutes on subscription to be consumed on mobile devices. I think there's about 5 billion smartphones in the world, or that's projected for the end of this year or early next year. Katzenberg's own figures are that 2 billion people consume about an hour's worth of content on those devices. So I think it goes back to the same pillars and the same roots, but there will be different portals and multi-portals. I totally agree with your model that if something's licensed across the FANGs, the Netflix, the Amazons, the BBCs, and so consumers of any age will soak up the targeted content. So I think technology is agnostic and a portal to reinforce more of the same if it's good.
Yeah. And actually not changing, in essence, the skills at the base of this, the animation skills at the base of it.
And storytelling.
And storytelling at the heart of it. Okay, that's really interesting. And some, mind-blowing figures in there. And AR, VR, it's now the focus for lots of government reports, and there's lots of people talking about how much this is going to be absolutely the way we consume content in the future. What's your views about that? And it's obviously also what the government's investing quite significantly in terms of R&D. Is that the right focus? Is the business there? Is it mature enough for us to be working within it? What are views?
Well, if I can kick that one off.
Please.
I am convinced that much as we have these enjoyable kind of retro 50s birthday cards and images, that market will reinvent itself, looking back at our time, whether it's a golden age or not, of people having bricks in front of their heads. It can't continue and, for me, become a scalable market. I think it's a stepping stone. So I mentioned Sony's Spider-Man on PS4. Sony have the biggest selling VR device, which is 2 million units. That's not massively scalable at the moment. The true VR market and augmented reality to an extent at the moment is a smartphone. The exponential element, I believe, will come when companies like Apple and Google plug your specs into it. There's been some experimentation with Magic Leap. They've raised $1 billion. Magic Leap 1 is good, but the field of vision is very limited, so you can kind of see over, which kind of spoils the illusion. I saw a demo which was great in terms of utilising existing great IP. So you sat in a real world room like this that they've fabricated. There's a sofa, a table, and a standard lamp, amongst other things. So you're in the real world and you feel that you're in the real world. Then Tinkerbell, Walt Disney's Tinkerbell, flies in as if she was in this room, lands on the table, and there's a mirror on the table, and she has a reflection. And then she flies over to the standard lamp. Imagine it's that speaker, goes ping and switches light on. That's quite an immersive experience. You can see how it would link in with things like Amazon's Alexa to turn lights off and on. You could see concerts, whether it's Rolling Stones, Mozart, or Taylor Swift, or whoever's fashionable, being portrayed on your kitchen table or lounge table or in front of you. And so I think all that is to come. But I would put that in terms of a truly immersive market outside of the smartphone, maybe a decade hence. I believe in social VR as well, where we'll all have digital doubles. I know our tech can do that. I have one myself. You saw how realistic Siren was in real time. But for it to get mass, I think it's further on than most people think, and the distribution portal today is the popular devices that have a screen. So it's still TVs, it's still smartphones, and I can't see that changing as rapidly as perhaps some of the people who've invested in it believe. And finally, just to sew the things together, companies like Alibaba have invested in Magic Leap, which is great, so there's a belief in the future. They've also, together with all the big Hollywood studios, invested in Katzenberg's QB. So for me, if it's all the Hollywood studios investing in a platform for smartphones as opposed to VR and AR just yet, that would indicate that's where the market's going to start with, and the other stuff is fabulous and great, but the tech isn't ready yet.
And maybe also beyond the tech, I mean, VR, I'm struggling with VR as a means of telling stories. Mm-hmm. So it feels like it's very adapted to gaming and live events and news and documentaries. Well, documentaries, news at least. But in terms of telling a story, when telling a story is necessarily have one point of view, which is that of the sort of creator, the director, in VR, because you can look everywhere and you're sort of telling a story with a VR device. All the experiences which I have seen have been very disappointing, because again you're left to roam and go wherever when therefore you're missing half of the things that the creators want you to see. So I don't really understand VR as a means of storytelling medium.
I think it does come down to what added value it gives the content in the first place. Like one of my favorite VR games at the moment is Elite Dangerous, which is essentially a spaceship flying game, and you sit in a spaceship and fly it, and it's pretty much real time, like 10 minutes just flying around suns. But the value that you get from actually being inside that spacecraft and kind of exploring, that's kind of what adds to it. However, a lot of VR stuff tends to be, imagine if you're in the same space, but actually that doesn't add anything in terms, like you say, kind of storytelling-wise or kind of content-wise. So I don't think they've quite got it there in terms of what that is supposed to mean in terms, like the visual language, I guess, or the narrative language of VR. And like you were saying, I think a lot of the reason why VR is so popular now is I think it has external uses, like medical, architectural, building,
education,
and educational. And I don't think a lot of where people go when they think of VR in a creative sense or in a narrative sense tends to be kind of way out, kind of technologically way out of what we can actually do at the moment. So like you say, kind of people are expecting things to fly out of walls and all this kind of style stuff. And like you say, we'll get there, and there are kind of some nice tech demos, but it's not something that's actually kind of doable yet.
Is that Elite? Is that the David Braben game that first came out in 1982?
Yes, there's the one.
So it's again stories, IPs, popular stuff. I think there are experiences where you can watch theatre in the round. And I've seen some really good stuff on HoloLens and Magic Leap, but these things are $3,000 each to buy at the moment.
But they're putting you in an environment.
Yeah.
Again, like it's just like what story is being told with the medium. That's the.
But the combination of our, I suppose, if the tech, if we need to catch, or we need to wait for the tech to catch up with the consumer in terms of, an experience, the storytelling narrative that goes with the indie and general animation sector, and the skills around animation puts us at the heart of that new business, and we should just be very aware that we're at the heart of that new business development. Finally, have we got time to open up to the audience? Because I would love to hear your questions to this brilliant panel, if we have some time. Great stuff. So any questions that immediately arise from that discussion? Lady in 3 rows back.
Just wanted to touch on the subject of music. When I used to submit stuff many, many moons ago, the BBC were very nervous about music because of the different countries you're going to be exporting the animation to and what was entailed in translating. What are you doing these days with certain animations that are out there that have song contents? Are you having to translate them into different languages, or?
The way we work, the independent production company will commission the composer, and they will have a publishing agreement which will usually buy out international usage for that piece of music, so, say for PRS payments back.
So, for example, say if you had an animation Peppa Pig and they were singing a song, do you have to translate it?
You can translate them, the dubbing cost,
Yeah, so it makes it more, it makes it more expensive, but at the end of the day, if it's a key appeal of the program, then, we'll keep the song. So, I mean, in Papa, the songs are translated in other countries. I think you're referring to the fact that it's expensive to dub songs internationally.
Yes, I mean, can you get away with Can you get away with sometimes with leaving them in the English language?
You can, and certainly Scandinavian broadcasters look at it as an asset because it's a language. They look at it as a language learning tool for Scandi kids wanting to learn English.
It's just that you seem to have changed. BBC seem to have changed their ideas because one time it was, oh no, we don't want too much music content because it's a problem. But obviously now you've overcome that.
It depends.
But there would be a BBC worldwide consideration.
Yeah,
BBC in the UK, they're like, so long as you make the show, the song in English, they're good. But it's just the fact that if you're looking at the entity, whoever is funding the gap to exploit it internationally, they would potentially have a concern that the dubbing cost will be very heavy, very expensive when exporting the show internationally. So they need to make sure that the extra cost is justified by the quality of the content, the fact that maybe they'll be able to make some of this money back through selling, the tunes on, on iTunes or any other Spotify or any other platform where they can make some of that cost back, because it is more expensive to dub to dub episodes in which you have songs. But it's totally
And what about
doable.
the intellectual property on the writer of the song if it's being translated? Who owns that foreign translation on the lyrics?
Well, the company doing the distribution would commission the dub, and therefore would own the lyrics
Translation
in the foreign translations. Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else got any questions at all? Thank you, gentlemen. 3 rows back.
My question is more about the IP. So when you get an idea from outside of the organization, and I understand that you're both, in Entertainment One and BBC, you're both keen to go with the ideas that can go further on different platforms and merchandising, etc., licensing. So how do you look at the ideas at that early stage? I mean, where do you see yourself in terms of sharing in the IP?
Shall I go first? Because I'm quite simple, as you know. So the way that we work in animation acquisitions, which is sort of its own little sort of separate entity, we don't take any sort of share of the IP. The IP resides with you, and we just simply buy a broadcast license. So we'll just buy the right to show your idea, your content, your program on BBC platforms. That's all we do.
But I understand you're always keen to get involved in the very early stages to have your...
Absolutely. So we're absolutely sure that the program is going to be tonally right for our channels. So that's why we tend to pre-buy things more, but we don't share in your IP. We just buy a broadcast license, but we're very nosy and we like to meddle, so that's why we like to get in early.
Thank you very much. And how is it different for you at Entertainment One?
We've been involved with projects where, with PJ Masks, it was just sort of, by the time it came out on the table, I said yes when it was just a logo. Up to recently, there was a show where a partner had produced an entire pilot and we loved it. And we decided to partner on the basis that we could actually see what the show was going to be. So there is absolutely no rule if we see the potential for when we examine the IP. I would say a bit like the BBC, it's most of the time, particularly for something which is going to have commercial, very strong commercial potential on the licensing and merchandising front, we would be very, very involved in the process to ensure that that initial idea will have the ability to travel in all these different arenas, whether it's, sort of linear, non-linear, interactive and licensing, sort of using the expertise of our team the commercial team inputs during the process to ensure that it has the broadest potential. But again, that's a process which is very much the one that we took on PJ Masks, and then you have on the other end of the spectrum Pepper, where we don't give a single note. We just give, at every season, we just, sit down with Mark and Nev and say, it would be great if there was an episode about, I don't know, with a policeman, or an episode about sort of Chinese New Year, and they have 26 to make, so that's it. We just give 2 themes, and that's all we do, and then they go, that's an extreme example, I guess, but it just goes from there to our team on PJ Masks having everything to do about sort of inputting on everything, the color of this, the color of that, what happens when they transform, what happens there, what vehicles are going to be in the next season, and accessories, et cetera, et cetera. So there is no one single answer to your question, I think.
You answered the question.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Have we got one more question from the audience? Some amazing insights from Benjamin and Andy as well. So,
hello, for Benjamin and Andy, quite interested in how, because I don't know, being the Manimation person here, the CMC person, children's media is my bag, but we're very interested in Manimation, obviously, in the market that's opening up, or has been around a long time, for commercials, promotions and so on. Where do you see the future of those short form but highly effective animated sequences that are being commissioned by creative agencies and so on?
Thank you, Greg.
Well, I go first. From our point of view, we see much more use cases of people wanting to use technology to create content quicker, faster, and to a greater level of quality. As I said, we have to reinforce it with a team of artists that we've got, so it's still good for animators, but the tech itself means that you can output better quality when it's at the more digital human level than the straight cartoon level, if you like, but it can be a lot quicker, and we can also use tech to do voice to animation. And in terms of new media, something that is quite prevalent is social VR, so people can immerse themselves in passive content, if you like, but also interactive content. So a company like Cloud Imperium make these big world games where you're in spaceships and you can look at your webcam and be a character and facially puppet it for yourself. So I think tech, together with all the storytelling and skills and all the valuable things we've talked about, can kind of make things more accessible to everybody. And that can be independently. You don't have to do it through a third-party video games publisher or TV channel or whatever. If something's really good and well crafted, it will find a way, I think, and all the tech helps get it out quicker.
I think in promotion terms as well, there are lots of tools available now that can allow you to do very neat things. Last week we had Penfold out of Danger Mouse animated live and our presentation links. So the actor Kevin Eldon was there, and he was responding to the presenter, and it was a really lovely promotional thing to do. Just sort of as an example of where you can use new toys.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. Right, we're going to have to draw a line under this session, but of course the themes will flow through. And, a golden age we've talked about, seriously having animation at the heart of a burgeoning new business, even if it is a bit further away down the line than maybe some investors are talking about now. We've got so many different platforms, we've got so many different opportunities for animation, commercials and so on. We need to harness the industry, and I think the time and the expertise that our panel have given us this morning, this lovely, actually it was, Monday morning in Manchester, has been fantastic to frame that. So a big round of applause for Jackie, Olivia, Andy and Benjamin. Thank you.